Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show. In a world of Trumpian diplomacy, where international relations are conducted by midnight tweet, G7 meetings break up in disarray, and the established world order on trade is shaking to its foundations, is there a better way to conduct international relations? Today we examine the concept of soft power and some of the institutions within the United Kingdom charged with the task of taking it forward. Is their effect negligible in a world of hard men and tough choices? Or do they point the way to a gentler, more patient and ultimately more effective method of conducting business with new friends and old enemies alike? But first to Alex with your tweets, your messages and your emails.
Well, first up, there's been quite a reaction to our series on Gibraltar, and Naomi Quigley and Mike Nichols, both of whom were guests on the show, have tweeted in to say how much they enjoyed the experience. It was interesting, the reaction from Gibraltarians. I mean, I think there was a general view. They were really pleased that at last someone was paying attention to their very particular issues with Brexit. Remember, Gibraltar, a territory which voted 96% to remain in the European Union, but still one, as we saw in our series, which is looking confidently towards the future. And a very solemn view from Stephen Keefe, who reminds us of George Orwell's 1984, and he thinks that's the way the world is heading. Stephen writes, three northern hemispheric dictatorial power blocks fighting over the resources of the southern hemisphere. Is our wee land, I mean Scotland, to be in the Eurasia bloc of EU and Russia, or the Oceania bloc, North America and Airstrip 1? Are we to be the northernmost part of that airstrip? Well, interestingly enough, Stephen, George Orwell wrote his dystopian masterpiece in Scotland, so you may be onto something there. And finally, this week, from Matt, who is talking about the National Security Capability Review, and he's worried that the increased funding for the World Service is basically a state-funded propaganda channel using the Institute of State and Capitalism to push the agenda at the exclusion of all others. Actually, Matt, it was your tweet that gave us inspiration to do this programme on soft power. Now, it's absolutely true that one person's propaganda is another person's information. But as we're trying to deploy in this programme, much of these organisations, including for that matter the BBC World Service, seem to point to a better way to conduct international relations than hard power. I think soft power is fundamentally superior to hard power.
The concept of soft power is defined as a persuasive approach to international relations, typically involving the use of economic or cultural influence. In the UK, it is applied through many institutions, some governmental and some, like our great universities, autonomous. Commanding the public scene is DFID, with its impressive developmental budget. However, there are many others stretching from pure parliamentary, such as the Inter-Parliamentary Union, to the state-funded British Council, which promotes educational and cultural links, to hybrid initiatives between government and political parties, such as the Westminster Foundation for Democracy. The work of the British Council can depend on support across the Commons. Here is an example of the government's own backbenchers pressing the case.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the very significant contribution made by the British Council to projecting British values overseas, and regularly witness this on my visits to Asia and the Pacific.
Given the importance of the British Council when it comes to our soft power, what are the implications of possible cuts in funding, in non-ODA funding to the Council's work, and how might these affect the government plans for a global Britain?
May I thank my honourable friend for his question. As part of our vision for a global Britain, we want a properly funded and effective Council that projects those British values right across the world. I believe that the Council will continue to deliver activity in non-ODA countries through the income generated from other sources, such as its commercial income.
And from both chambers, soft power has strong supporters and advocates. Alex spoke first to prominent crossbencher Baroness Uden from the House of Lords, and then to Dr Lisa Cameron, the Member of Parliament for East Kilbride, Straven and Les Mahago.
Now, I'm delighted to be joined by Baroness Uden herself, one of the foremost exponents in the House of Lords about these organisations which are generally thought to constitute soft power. How do you rate their importance, Baroness Uden?
I think that organisations, for example, British Council, but many of the organisations that are working internationally in different parts of the world makes our work much more easy, and they set the space for greater understanding and I think more cooperation.
Now, if we think about the recent Commonwealth Conference, it was very unusual because it became a almost a lightning conductor, so that Britain started to see itself as some of the other Commonwealth countries were seeing because of the hostile environment policy and the Windrush generation, and public policy in the UK had to be changed as a result. Do you think that was a beneficial process for public policymakers in the UK?
Certainly, I think that it worked towards changing and enabling a climate where more honourable discussion could take place and put aside some of our difficult years as colonisers. I think that I can say that safely. In one of the debates in the Lords, I actually said, and I highlighted, our Foreign Secretary's lack of diplomacy when he mentioned in a meeting that, it may be seen as, or it should be colonisation #2 or whatever. It's disgraceful. So I think we had to do quite a lot of work, and some of these international organizations had to make, do with what he had said as president, to say, no, we have long history in many countries in the world, and we have an important place for us. The world is very small now, it's a global world, and we need to work together.
So your argument would be that that sort of soft diplomacy is rather more effective than the sharp and sometimes unfortunate phrase?
I think it's more significant than phrase. Historically, we've been used to working in such a way that, we have this government-to-government relationship, and then we've set out organizations like Commonwealth Parliament Association, the British Council, some of the large NGOs to do the soft power bit, but we've never recognized them in the public. So, whenever in debates or in the public arena, we're all too quick to criticize these organizations, saying they're not accountable. When we really mean is that they have made sure the government work becomes absolutely integrated in what they do. And we've got to try and make sure that, no government strategy calls the funding back.
Now, one of your great campaigns recently has been on overseas students, and you seem to argue there's almost a disconnect between the policy which generates such goodwill of students being educated in this country, whether it be England or Scotland or across these islands, but secondly, the government's hostile attitude to the number of overseas students. So what are you doing? What's your campaign to try and change the government's mind?
So I think must be stated categorically. We mustn't select where the student comes from. So we mustn't say, for instance, only Chinese students are good enough, only Indian students are good enough. We must say also Russian students, students from Pakistan, Bangladesh, all the other countries that can really, make sure that they contribute to the diaspora community that is already very vibrant in Britain.
So your message to government is get the cap off overseas students and demonstrate you're really interested in international influence.
Completely change the script, which is my project. I have to take every opportunity of saying it. I think that what we must say now in an open global world, that we mustn't talk about it in one way in the media and do something completely different. We have to be concise and, just really say that we value these organizations and the impact they make globally.
Bana Sudin, thank you so much for the interview.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. And now from the House of Lords to the House of Commons, I'm about to speak to Dr. Lisa Cameron, another parliamentarian hugely active in these organisations promoting international cooperation. Dr. Lisa Cameron, you're a member of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. You formerly served on the International Development Select Committee, and of course the major DFID office is in East Kilbride in your constituency. How important do you think what's generally called soft power is in international relations?
I think it's extremely important. I know from hosting parliamentarians to the UK Parliament and building bilateral discussions and relations with them, that those bonds sustain even the most difficult times when perhaps political difficulties arise. If you have those bilateral relationships that have worked over time, then those are the relationships you can rely on to try to negotiate a way forward.
But we're in a world where the President of the United States tweets something offensive out at 2 o'clock in the morning and the international media jumps. Could you actually have a role for these long-term relationships in a world of instant media and constant insults?
Well, the media is one aspect, but behind that are the relationships that parliaments have had to parliament over lengthy historic periods of time. And those relationships are built up upon trust. They're built up upon prior working agreements, they're built up on sustainability, and those are the ones that, despite instant media reactions, will sustain over time.
See, when you're approaching the Commonwealth countries, when so many of them, for example, still have what we would think of as repressive legislation on gay rights, is that subjects that you are able to discuss openly, or are they sort of kept off bounds in case people take offence?
I think that is the importance of soft power. Perhaps ministers from different countries would find it difficult to discuss those sorts of issues in the public domain, but parliamentarian to parliamentarian, those are the types of issues that can be discussed, and countries are very interested to look at ways forward that have worked in other areas, and then to try to progress in their own country and make sure that that happens.
Now, you've championed the 0.7% of national income going to international development, and of course the different major offices in your own constituency.
Yes.
And you're a regular participant in the different programmes. I know a great deal about it. I mean, can you point to, because this part is often challenged, the real effect of these development programmes?
My constituents are very supportive of DFID. It's in the constituency, but not just because it's in the constituency. We know that it's doing such valuable work internationally. Getting disabled children into school and seeing the smile on their faces is worthwhile, and that would tug on the heartstrings of any constituent across the United Kingdom.
Now, despite a pretty energetic tabloid press campaign against the international development budget, is still being sustained at the present moment. Are you confident that the cross-party support for it will be enough to maintain that position?
The aid budget is important. It's important in terms of eradicating poverty, but that's extremely important in terms of stability in the world. If we can try to create stability, jobs and livelihoods for people in other countries, then issues such as migration, etc. are lessened, and those are issues that the government also is prioritising. And
do you ever feel the urge to, as you champion the cause of soft power and soft influence, to stand up and say, well, look, just stop shouting at each other and start discussing over the long term? Can you see a change in the environment which will underpin the advantages of these long-term relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it can be frustrating at times when people take very polarised positions, because you know that the way forward is the middle path often. But as a psychologist, standing up and shouting at people doesn't often bring them to your own type of thinking. So it is about reasoning, it is about getting people on side, and it's about pragmatism, I think, going forward.
And as a psychologist, do you ever feel like tweeting back to the President of the United States?
No, I haven't thought about tweeting back to the President of the United States. As a psychologist, I think I'm quite concerned, though, about the level of abuse and trolling that female, in particular, parliamentarians have in the UK, and actually we've done some work on that through the Interparliamentary Union as well, and Westminster Foundation for Democracy.
And you'll continue to champion the cause of soft power?
Indeed I will, yes. I think it's extremely important. It works behind the scenes, but it's often what is effective and what works over the long term.
And in the international delegations of which you've been a part, is there a particular resonance when people find out you're a Member of Parliament from Scotland?
Most definitely. It's often the case that delegates will come up to me and say that they have a bond already with Scotland. They've studied in Scotland, they've travelled in Scotland, perhaps they've been at St Andrews University, Aberdeen or Glasgow. They mention this, they feel that as alumni they have that bond with Scotland, and they want to increase the bilateral relations, which is really important for Scotland.
Dr. Lisa Cameron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now back to Tasmina in the studio.
Coming up after the break, we look from the theory of soft power to the practice, and specifically at how these initiatives have impacted on the key Commonwealth country of Pakistan, as we speak to Ali Imran and Zara Shah. We'll see you then.
Welcome back. And now for the second part of our programme on soft power and the organisations which deploy it, we're going to turn the focus to one country, Pakistan, and examine the impact on that country. I'm speaking to Ali Imran, who's worked for both the British Council and the Westminster Foundation for Democracy. Ali Imran, you worked for a number of years as the country officer of the Westminster Foundation for Democracy. What was the main area of your work?
Alex, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the show. My work with Westminster Foundation for Democracy was more focused on supporting and strengthening parliamentary performances in Pakistan and linking Pakistani Parliament with UK Parliament and UK Scottish Parliament. We were working in a number of countries, and we have been linking those parliamentary experiences between Pakistani Parliament and those Parliament.
I'm a former board member of the Westminster Foundation. And I think it'd be true to say that across the political parties, the board members were very concerned that they wouldn't have programmes which would be seen as preaching to people, or saying that the Westminster system was perfect and beyond reproach, but rather that it would be to support. Now, do you think it managed effectively in Pakistan to get across the support idea without being I don't know, holier than thou, and saying Westminster as the mother of parliaments was perfect?
Westminster Foundation's experience in working in Pakistan, it was more like widely receptive, because Pakistan shares the same Commonwealth and Westminster parliamentary democracy system. But at the same time, as you are mentioning, you're right in mentioning that telling other parliaments what to do is something which is not acceptable to the integrity of Pakistani parliament as well. I remember I was there in the Scottish Parliament 2014, and we had some great learning from the way committee systems.
Well, thinking of the Scottish-Pakistan relations, tell me how you felt the Pakistan plan that I know the Scottish Government has is working out, and particularly the emphasis on education and also in women's participation in politics.
The Pakistani citizens have very much respected image of Scotland, and especially around youth, because they are ambitious, they are getting now well educated, so they are much more focusing on their education, and that's where there are certain opportunities for the Pakistani youth to get benefit from the amazing educational Scottish institutions. Women empowerment was not there 30 years ago, and now we see women in every sphere of life in Pakistan.
You had a woman Prime Minister before Scotland did.
Yes, we have the woman speaker of the National Assembly, the first ever woman speaker of any Islamic countries. At the same time, I must share my parliamentary experiences where just like in 2017-18, we have 20% women parliamentarian, and they contributed 50% of the parliamentary business.
All right.
So that shows how serious they are. And recently, Pakistan has gone some very good pro-women legislation as well. But that does not mean that everything is at the moment is very rosy for the women in Pakistan.
Well, Scotland's connections with Pakistan are legion, of course. I remember actually in the Commonwealth Games in 2014, there was a difficulty with the Pakistan bowling team in terms of its formulation. So at the very last minute, they called up a couple of Chico and Ali from Glasgow to represent Pakistan, and at the very last minute they entered as the Pakistan team, and were actually beating the favourites Australia halfway through the first match. Unfortunately, it wasn't a fairy tale ending, but I don't think anything could better illustrate the very close kinship and family connections between Scotland and Pakistan.
There are certain cooperation areas which I think that was a part of Scottish government's policy as well, and one such area was this energy sector and water sector. Right now, Pakistan is facing a great challenge in terms of water management. Pakistan is getting one of the water-stressed countries, and there shall be serious crisis in next 10 years. So I think, again, water and energy is another area where there can be this kind of support.
Well, water is, Scotland has obviously great natural advantages, but in water technology, and has one of the relatively few publicly owned but extremely advanced water companies in the world, which gives a certain advantage when it's contributing to international development.
Yes, and one final thing which I would like to highlight is this bilateral trade, because Pakistan since 2014 is having this EU GSP Plus status, where there is prioritization for the European Union to access to the Pakistani market, and Pakistani market can sell their products to European Union.
Brexit, which is the all-consuming issue in the Westminster Parliament and in British politics. Has that had any impact in public discourse in Pakistan?
Yeah, the common perception in Pakistan is that this single market economy and like this trade relationship between UK and European Union, that's going to be in the benefit of the rest of the world as well. So somehow we see that like this Brexit impact is not only going to impact the British economy, but it's going to impact the other economies as well.
So did Pakistan view Britain's membership of the European Union, or certainly the European single marketplace, as effectively a gate of entry for Pakistan through Britain into the wider European marketplace? Was there an aspect in that in terms of the economic relationship?
Most of the Pakistanis, they believe that this single market economy was going to be beneficial for the Pakistan as well, to like have this common market where they can come and sell. And once Britain coming out of that, of course, because as I've already mentioned, that this EU GSP plus status, if UK is out of European Union, then this GSP plus status is not going to work, and Pakistan has to build those kind of bilateral trade agreements or relationship with UK, and that's going to impact a lot. But with the common market economy, I think Pakistan was getting some great benefit out of it.
Now, Ali, you're a lawyer by profession. Is Pakistani politics as dominated by the legal profession as British politics is?
Yes, we have some great lawyers who are working in the parliament. So yes, it's not dominated, but yes, there are certain great lawyers who are there in the parliament and in the key government positions. So yeah.
Well, we won't say whether that's a good or a bad thing. Ali Imran, thank you so much for the interview. Just before you go, I want to present you with a quaich, which is the Scots Gaelic for a loving cup. Now, you know the drill. Usually, traditionally in Scotland, it's whisky and the quaich and round, but other softer drinks are available. Could be iron brew, could even be Diet Coke. But for many thanks indeed for the interview, please.
Well, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you.
Thank you.
Soft power, of course, can be used in a number of ways, not least in relation to engaging with the many and varied diaspora that exist across these islands. I'm delighted to be joined by Zara Shah, the Chief Executive Officer and Trustee of the British Pakistan Foundation. Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a bit about the British Pakistan Foundation.
So the British Pakistan Foundation is a social enterprise. It's a non-profit, secular, bipartisan community building platform that was founded in 2010 that provides an opportunity to professionally develop and support entrepreneurship amongst the over 1.5 million British Pakistanis in the UK.
So of course the Pakistanis are spread well across the UK, many in Scotland, and all contributing extremely well to the economy. Do you find that the setting up of this foundation, of which has many supporters, has engaged British overseas Pakistanis who have come here with the wider indigenous community as well?
I would say it has. The one way we have done it through creating professional forums, such as for law, medicine, finance, entrepreneurs, and by offering mentoring and internships and opportunities for people to network, interact, not with just members of the British Pakistani community, but the wider community, and kind of share and celebrate the best of their culture.
Do you find that the British Pakistan Foundation has a role to play in engaging soft power?
Definitely, because we have influence within the diaspora and also through the diaspora in Pakistan as well. We work closely with the Pakistan High Commission, and we've been working closely in supporting the UK government, both the Foreign Office and the Commonwealth Summit, the UK Department of Trade, the Home Office Building Stronger Britain Together programme, and the Department of Communities and Local Government.
And a number of your projects took my interest. One was in relation to women and young people. Tell us a bit about that.
So under the women's programme, we have various initiatives. We ran a leadership program in London. The first workshop focused on communication and assertiveness skills. What we discovered is a lot of British Pakistani and BME women from the ethnic minority background. There's a bit of a conflict within their own cultural upbringing, which kind of teaches them to be more, sometimes subservient. And in the workplace, they're meant to be very assertive. So there were some cultural barriers there that women faced. Currently, we're running an entrepreneurship program for the most disadvantaged BME women and British Pakistani women in Birmingham at the Nishkam Centre, and that was very fulfilling. We launched the program in May, and we had a initial workshop this month, and it was great to see a lot of enthusiasm. So a lot of these ladies have never had these opportunities.
You do have various setups within your organisation where people from, say, the medical profession, legal profession, women, can mix and meet with each other?
Definitely, because what they lack is positive role models, such as yourself, you know, women who've kind of out there engaging, participating. Over 50% of British Pakistani women don't vote. So it's very important for them to understand their role and how they can have a say in, you know, shaping the political future right now, especially with Brexit and all of these, you know, challenges that we are facing.
Now, of course, you have the support of the UK government, the Home Office in your endeavours, and the Pakistan High Commission, which is excellent. Do you find that you have a good working relationship, and what's it like to be a British Pakistani?
I'm very proud to be a British Pakistani. I'm proud to be British and I'm proud to be Pakistani. I think the advantage is that you can take the best of both cultures, and in that way you add the most value to the society in this country. I do feel that we would love the government to support us more. We always need more support to be able to expand because we're well established in London. We're now trying to expand our programs where they're much needed in Bradford, Leeds, Glasgow, Manchester and Birmingham, and we can't do it without the support of the government.
Zara Shah, thank you very much indeed for coming to Alex Salmond Show. Thank you. Now, over to Alex.
A few years back, I was in a meeting in the leadership compound in Beijing with the then Chinese foreign minister. It was an important meeting, not least of which because the UK was in the doghouse and there hadn't been any Zhong-Nin-Hai meeting with any minister of any description from the UK for some considerable time. Halfway through the meeting, the foreign minister asked me in perfect English whether I thought he should accept the offer of an honorary degree from his alma mater, the London School of Economics, of which he had such fond memories. I said, of course you should, the foreign minister. And I added he should go to London via Scotland for good measure. Now, the point about the story is this, that even at times of tension, then connections of education and culture can cut through where more conventional diplomacy might well fail. Does this mean that a medium-sized power like the United Kingdom should abandon any attempt to project hard power and offer instead more education and cultural exchanges? No, not totally. Does it mean, as one of our viewers was worried, that the UK should invest in propaganda outlets? No, not totally again. But it's difficult to resist the conclusion that a world where countries compete in soft power might be fundamentally more attractive and rather safer than one where countries compete in the number of missiles they can balance in a nuclear submarine. It's difficult to avoid that conclusion that the current balance of effort and expenditure in the United Kingdom is out of kilter, and that more use of more soft power might work to the benefit of us all. And so from Tasmina, myself and all of the team at the Alex Salmond Show, it's goodbye for now.